Coming up on That Was a Show? Free Spirit was a show. A single dad struggles to balance his at-home law practice with raising 3 kids. When his youngest son casually wishes for someone who will pay more attention to him, a witch named Winnie literally drops from the sky into their lives. Dad doesn't know she's a supernatural being and hires her as a housekeeper, nanny, mother figure, and possibly a love interest? Yikes is right. Winnie is magic and can make pretty much anything appear on command. But can she charm her way into this family's hearts? Obviously, yes. Oh, and Alyson Hannigan plays the middle child and proto-Meg Griffin type in one of her first roles ever. Brynn, Aaron, and Barry conjure up some theories as to why this 1989 trope-fest was quickly made to disappear. Cold open. We grew up during peak sitcom, Seinfeld, Friends, The Fresh Prince. But those shows were diamonds in the rough. This podcast is not about those diamonds. It's about the rough. Some sitcoms were briefly popular in their time. Some were canceled almost immediately. You probably won't recognize most of these, and you'll ask, that was a show? That was a show? The podcast about failed or forgotten sitcoms from the 80s and 90s, starring
Brynn Burney,
Aaron Yeager,
and Andrew Helmer as Barry.
A Radio Gizmo production.
So, hello everybody. Welcome to the That Was a Show, the podcast.
episode 44.
40.
It's a good number.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do we count that one you guys did without me? Did that get counted
No.
in the official numbering?
No.
No.
Bonuses are not counted in the official numbering, and I believe we've had 3 bonuses so far.
Yeah. Coming at you from Toronto, Ontario, where it is currently unseasonably warm.
Yeah.
It is. Well, at least for Canadians, we
Yeah.
don't know what to do with any heat. It surprises us every year.
Every freaking year, even though the climate has been warming, consistently.
But also, I think, we grew up being exposed to so much U.S. pop culture, as is highly evident in the subject
this
matter of this
entire
podcast,
yeah.
that I think we also grew up internalizing the idea that Canada is supposed to be cold, and in winter it is cold, but in summer
It is hot
it's
AF.
very hot, and
Yeah.
Toronto is hot, and
Yeah,
and
but it's not summer yet.
No, it's not
only
even.
May, so
it's,
whatever.
It's mid-May, it's sweltering hot, and unlike some places where they're like, but don't worry, it's a dry heat. No. Nah, here it's a wet heat.
So it's a wet heat. It's
Yeah.
a wet heat, everybody.
One of the really annoying cliche taglines that people say in Ontario is just, oh, it's not the heat, it's the humidity.
Yeah, true.
I don't
not
care
the
what it
heat.
is. It's something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's something.
It's upsetting
It's
is what it is.
because we're all a bunch of grumpy,
Yeah.
people who don't like the heat.
Very grumpy.
Yeah.
Aaron is the one who likes the sun out of the 3 of us.
Well,
Yeah.
like
You're-
is a
you're-
strong word,
Yeah.
but yeah.
compared to both of us though, like
Yeah.
you're an outdoors type. Not
Yeah.
really, but
I am an
in
outdoors type.
In comparison, you definitely are.
I would say, yeah, in comparison. I like the outdoors, but under very specific conditions.
Correct.
Give me an overcast day and what is it? What did we say my sweet spot was? It was 20 degrees or
Oh,
something.
less probably,
Less.
18.
And then that's Celsius.
Definitely
This is
less.
Celsius.
This
Definitely.
is Celsius, Americans. So do the conversion in your head or Google it or
'Cause
whatever.
we don't know how, so
Yeah.
Google it.
Yeah.
Well, Brynn and I do.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
So we're at a time right now where, so they haven't turned the air on in the building yet. Next week, that happens most likely. So my apartment is actually hotter than it is outside. So I just went for a 2-hour walk, and it was just so much nicer out there than it is in here.
we've got a little, a nice, a little schwitz.
Yeah,
You got
I
a
do.
schwitz going?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. Yamahama, it's Fright night. My cat is not pleased.
Aw.
She just keeps
Poor
coming into
baby.
she just keeps coming into the room and like giving me like disgruntled like little talks like and then just wanders out again. I'm like, I know. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, good episode of That Was a Show, everybody.
I know, we're just talking about the
All
weather.
right, so record scratch. Let's get into it here.
Yeah, let's do it.
I chose this episode's show.
This episode's show. That was good.
Okay, that was
Accurate. It was it's fine. It was
Yeah.
that was factually
It just
accurate.
sounded
It's just a
awkward.
weird
Sorry, Aaron.
That's fine. Okay, so I guess I should tell everyone a bit about this show.
Please.
All right.
That's why they're here.
Single father, check. 3 children with a wide range of ages, check. At least one is rebellious and one is precocious, check. Supernatural being who suddenly enters their lives by accident and decides to stick around for some reason, check. Obvious will they or won't they, check. Big hair and baggy shirts for days, check. Allow me to introduce you all to a little-known 1989 sitcom called Free Spirit, about a witch named Winnie, played by Corinne Bohrer, who accidentally becomes the housekeeper for an upper-middle-class family. Dad, Thomas T.J. Harper, is a lawyer and recently divorced single father, and needs help with cooking, cleaning, and raising his kids. Paul Shearer plays the oldest kid, Rob, with 2 B's. Eden Gross plays the youngest child, Jean. And last but not least, Alyson Hannigan in one of her earliest roles ever as the middle child, Jessie. So there you have it. I'll just go right into the description of episode 1 because it's kind of a continuation of setting in motion what the hell this thing is about.
By all means.
We meet Mr. Thomas Harper. We immediately learn that he's a lawyer who works out of his house. He's in the middle of a meeting with a client, but all 3 of his kids are now home from school and he's struggling to split his time between the client meeting and the kids. Who knew 3 kids would have actual needs? In typical 1989 fashion, he works a high-paying job and they live in a massive house. He's trying to hire a housekeeper to help take care of the house and look after the kids. We know Rob, with 2 B's, is a typical cool teen because he's listening to loud rock music and taking a pop from the fridge. Sorry, that's soda for our listeners south of the 41st parallel. The youngest kid, Jean, has some bowling tournament coming up, and Dad promised to teach him how to bowl. Jean is worried that he's going to be going up against some girls, and they're going to kick his ass. Jessie, played by the aforementioned Alyson Hannigan, appears to be the one who is there solely to be the butt of jokes. Rob gives Jean a supportive heart-to-heart pep talk about the bowling, so he's kind of sensitive, but he's also holding a football, so we know he's not too sensitive. Rob leaves the room because he gets a phone call, and Jean, in this moment alone, wishes that, quote, somebody in this stupid house had time for me, just for me. Immediately, this wish is fulfilled when a woman falls into his room out of thin air.
I don't know if that's an accurate description. She does a weird little twirl into the room from the sky.
That's a better description.
She's like a corkscrew. She corkscrews into the room.
You're right. She
mysteriously.
corkscrews into the room, but she does fall to the floor. She doesn't stick the landing. She does collapse.
No, she does not.
Yeah.
She klutzes it up.
Yeah.
Almost done the description here. Conversation ensues. She demonstrates some magic, and we learn that she's a witch of some sort. Dad comes into the room. They need a cover story, and yada, yada, yada. She pretends to be an applicant for the housekeeper job. She gets hired, and thus begins what will become a running thread for the series, which is that the dad doesn't know that she's a witch. She does all sorts of magic and supernatural tricks, but he never sees it. But Jean knows, and soon Rob and Jessie learn that Winnie is a witch when she uses her magical powers to get them concert tickets. But she's an irresponsible housekeeper who makes a mess while teaching Jean bowling, and she calls out Thomas for not giving his kids enough attention. So he fires her. But then he hires her back because Jean bowls a strike, and also maybe they have the hots for each other.
Yeah, he definitely just gets a boner and then it's just like, oh, you can I fire you?
Yeah. I guess it's all fine.
It's
Soup's
okay.
creepy.
So yeah, I just have a lot of thoughts. I mean, okay, so like the whole thing, it's interesting because basically, it's called free spirit. So, there's all those connotations of like, I feel like it would make more sense if she were a ghost and not a witch.
Well, and she also distinctly has the powers and purview of a genie. So
Right. Yeah, so it's kind of odd. Yeah, the whole thing, because he wishes for her and she appears. Like, Jean wishes for her. So
That
it's like
is
a really
correct.
odd, like, combination of different supernatural things.
But if she was a genie, then it would be hard for them to dodge the inevitable question. Isn't this some sort of ripoff of I Dream of Jeannie?
Yeah, because she's another blonde lady, a cute little blonde lady.
But isn't that them just choosing whether or not they want to rip off I Dream of Jeannie or Bewitched?
Yeah,
yes.
it's like, I don't know. But I loved how, like the whole thing is like she is kind of like a quote unquote free spirit. She is kind of like bohemian and quirky. And like she seems like the very, very first, version of the manic pixie dream girl trope.
Yeah. What's
basically.
the show that we've talked about that has like the couple where she's the free spirit and he's
Dharma
the
and Greg.
Dharma and Greg.
So she's like Dharma. She's like a prototype for
yeah.
Dharma.
So she's like half supernatural being, but also half just like Dharma.
Yeah. And like
she's delightful. Is what she is.
Well, that's where I was going. Like she
Yeah.
is a delight. No one is questioning that. But I love how she's also styled to look exactly like Stevie Nicks from the 80s.
Yeah.
Like, because that's like, they're like, okay, who's witchy? Who's kind of witchy and like, kind of like a hippie and a new age type? It's like,
but her look is also a prototype for some, not all, but some of the wardrobe of Phoebe Buffay.
Exactly. She is also a Phoebe Buffay. Like, it is like a very similar, she's like the 80s version.
Yeah.
Like that's maybe how Phoebe would have dressed in the late 80s.
Yeah.
Because she has like really, really big hair, crimped, wavy, perm hair.
And the layered shirts and stuff.
Yeah.
But this show feels like they started with the title. Okay, Free Spirit. Well, we have to do a show called Free Spirit. What a great title. Then they figured out her character, kind of got it to a place where it was likable. And they're like, yeah, just throw in some other stuff. Yeah, just some fucking family she lives with. Who gives a shit?
I feel like at this point of this podcast, I feel like I have seen this show like 5 times.
Yeah, I agree.
This is wandering into this, and it's like, and I no longer really do any preamble into like when I watch it. I just kind of throw it on and just go for a ride.
Yeah,
and I'm like 5 minutes in, and I'm just like, oh, we're on one of these. Okay,
yeah.
All right.
It is a very specific menu item. The whole show is one big trope.
Yeah. It's like Mad Lib's sitcom, like
that's a very good way to put it.
A lot of them are just like a template. Like it's quite obvious that at the time it's like, okay, we're going to do another supernatural family sitcom.
Yeah.
So it's like insert trope here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess a lot of it is just really just like studios never getting over like why I Dream of Jeannie and Bewitched were so successul and just being like, we got to be able to do that again, right?
Yeah.
But they can't, right? They literally, those are the only two.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think personally, like, she had the goods to go the distance as a character.
Sure, yeah.
She was quite delightful, in my opinion. But I thought TJ, the dad, was terrifying.
Don't bring it. Don't call him TJ. That will unlock emotional distress for him.
Yeah.
There's this you weird. Should explain that.
Yeah. There's this weird bit in the first episode where like she sees something written on a picture frame from his ex-wife that's like TJ, and she's like, "Oh, people call you TJ," and he's like, "No, it's Thomas." And then like she brings that up with the youngest son, Gene, and like the kid like goes white as a ghost, and it's just like, you called him TJ.
Yeah,
you really shouldn't call him TJ.
Oh yeah.
That's what and then he can't say it,
and
then she like half-assed says it later, like, you know, he's so upset that he can't even talk about his mother, and I was just like, yeah, that's really distressing. Like, what was this trauma?
Yeah,
that
did he
happened?
murder his wife? Like,
They're
I know they're divorced, but it did really feel like he murdered his wife.
So I think maybe we should get into that detail right away, which is that for starters, we talked recently about the standard dichotomy of this trope.
Yeah.
That sitcoms often have a single parent, but usually if the mom's gone, it's because she's dead. And if the dad is gone, it's because he's a deadbeat. In this case...
Dad or deadbeat.
In this case, the mom is gone because she left him. They had some sort of divorce. We don't know all the details, but we do know that he has sole custody of the kids. She never comes around. The kids presumably have not seen her since she pieced out of this house.
They won't utter her name.
Yeah. And the context of this divorce is obviously traumatic to all of them. And
it's traumatic to me.
Yeah. And they don't...
It was chilling.
Yeah, it's... there are moments in this show in general, the scene near the end of the first episode where Winnie is having the conversation with Thomas, and they really get into it. And it's quite a dramatic scene where she's calling him out for not being around for the kids enough, and he's mad at her for not being a good housekeeper and not doing her job. And it's not a scene from a sitcom. It's a scene
pretty heavy.
It's a heavy scene from a drama that acting wise they do a decent job of, to be honest. It's a pretty decent scene plucked from a completely different show.
Yeah. It's a little heavy, man. And in those scenes, like Brynn said, I find him terrifying. And
he's very off-putting and scary.
Yeah, in that scene when they're having it out, I'm yep, that's it. He killed his wife. And he's been covering it up, and he makes all these little jokes about how he's divorced. Nah, she dead. She definitely dead. And then also in that scene, because I remember distinctly in this episode being oh, I wonder if they're going to have a will they or won't they? And then throughout the first episode, he kind of treats her as a kid. And I was okay, maybe he'll have a mentor relationship with her. And then in that scene where it's all dramatic and stuff, or when they make up after that fight, he's looking at her with goo eyes. And I was you've been infantilizing this girl the entire episode, and now you're in love with her. And it doesn't feel like a will they, won't they on both of their parts. It feels like he realizes there's a hot girl living in his house.
Yeah.
A hot, way younger girl.
Younger than him.
Well, even though she's 150.
Okay.
But
yeah.
Now,
technically, she's 150,
which
is another trope.
To be fair, although they don't specify in human years how old she is, we don't really know how old he's supposed to be. But I looked it up because I was also what the fuck is happening here?
I mean, he's in his 40s.
The actors are not that far apart in age.
Oh, okay.
He's 39 and she's 31 when this show began.
She looks very young, though.
So
she's got a very young
So she looks young
face.
for her age. And
okay.
She has Disney princess vibes.
Yeah.
She has that look. She's got the big eyes, she's very petite.
So
she looks she's 21.
So I'm not disputing that the context of what's happening is creepy, but I'm just saying from the perspective of production, in terms of what the actors went through.
That makes me feel better.
It's not bad for the actors because they are both close enough in age that from a production standpoint, at least we have that.
But
he looks old. He looks relatively old for her age, and she looks relatively young for her age.
Yeah, I thought she was closer to 20, to be honest.
Yeah.
So,
she's not.
She's like it would be uncomfortable for her because he is so stern and terrifying.
Well, maybe that
it was.
Maybe that unchecks some boxes for you,
Yeah, I don't know. It's he has I was gonna say, I'm he reminds me of Ted Bundy, but actually the whole thing about Ted Bundy is that he was actually charming. So
yeah, this guy ain't charming.
It was also, and I feel kind of bad, nothing against the actor. It's just his presence in this show. there was some darkness there.
Well, it's the
There was-
presence they gave him. It's the way they wrote the character.
Yeah, the way they wrote the character.
He's a real Kevin Nealon type, and
Yeah.
I don't want Kevin Nealon as the head of a household. So
Right. Like there's just some like there's like a very dark presence.
Also, though,
And it's
because
supposed
he killed his wife.
I guess.
we'll get into this more when we talk about the other episode, but like after watching episode 13, which we'll get to after, I felt like what he's doing in that episode where he's like trying to play it a little funnier, but there's still the moments of intensity that come out that
Yeah.
are uncomfortable. But the moments where he's trying to be funny, it feels like an unfunny version of like David Garrison as Steve Rhodes.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Theoretically, I guess his arc, if there is one, might be she's supposed to be getting him to come out of his shell.
Right.
And
It's like, yeah, she gets him to live in the moment.
Yeah, like
and
Dharma
be,
and Greg.
You know, it's
Yeah,
it is
yeah,
a
yeah.
classic Dharma and Greg.
get up
Yeah.
here on the table, like.
Okay, yeah, and if I think about the Dharma and Greg dynamic, Thomas Gibson as Greg did have this a similar stern,
Similar energy. He's a little
darkness.
scary. He's a little scary
he's
too.
a little scary too.
So this is the proto Dharma and Greg.
Yeah, yeah. Let's just
just
call
say
it what
that.
it is.
Yeah, let's just say
It is
that.
the proto Dharma and Greg, but there's a supernatural twist.
but it's funny because like my brain was just trying to be like, I almost could picture a version of Dharma and Greg where she's a witch. Like
Yeah.
you would not make many changes to the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of inappropriate intensity, the way this show is lit and shot feels very high contrast and intense. Like it had, at least in the pilot, like quite intense shadows that looked kind of cheaply lit, but also like just they emphasized these dramatic moments as well.
I mean, it just looks like that garish look that everything like from 1988 to about 1993 had. You know, just that everything is just way too bright. Like, you know, the Full House had it. That was a weird sentence. Family Matters house had it. You know, just like everything is just so, you know, squeaky clean and like nothing hiding behind any shadows.
Right.
Even though there are.
Now, I will say one thing that I kind of liked was that when she appeared, falling onto the floor there, they're both equally freaked out. Like she's also shocked that she's appearing there in some random kid's room on Earth. And so like, yeah, they don't really go anywhere with that. But like, I don't know, in that moment, I was like, that's fun.
It's a good, it's a good weird, like she kind of has that attitude for a lot of things. Like she just sort of kind of goes with it.
Yeah.
Again, this character like is just way better than the show deserves. And like almost all of it is her performance. Like,
yeah.
But like, yeah, I like that too, where she's just sort of, and she just keeps rolling with whatever's happening in that scene. She's, you know, she's great.
She's the saving grace of this show.
A lot of yes ands from her.
This show somehow manages to both under promise yet still under deliver.
Yeah.
Like I was kind of like, I was disappointed because I'm like, okay, it's another silly like supernatural sitcom. Maybe it'll be campy and fun, but it really just like wasn't. It just like fell flat. Like other than like her shtick, everything just like fell really, really flat.
Yeah. And like all the three kids are like they're all fine. They're all like perfectly likable to a point where you're just like, give me something here. Like you're all very agreeable in everything that happens to you. Like, yeah, they're always picking fun at like Alyson Hannigan, but it's like in the like most like playful, like polite way possible. Like it's just so everything's just so nice.
They're all written on the back of a napkin.
Yeah, that's true.
There's not much to those characters.
Yeah, the characters are Mad Lib, you know.
Yeah,
character
the
tropes.
actors did fine. You know,
there's something kind of cute about how attached Gene is to her, and like how he just really latches onto her as a mother figure. And you even see that. Like that even comes up in the episode 13 when we watch that, like, you know, when he hugs her for way too long and you're just like, oh, he's still got this.
But again, he's clearly like clinging to her as a mother figure that he has lost. And there is a real like tragic undertone to his relationship with her that's like that they don't hide in the way the dialogue is written or the way those scenes are performed. And you're like, are you trying to do like 80% sitcom, 20% drama here? and just like change gears real hard.
That was like a staple of the family-friendly sitcom. Like, it evolved from when people used to have to always learn lessons in sitcoms, and then it just sort of became like there just has to be
moralizing.
But I agree that those quote unquote touching moments are a key to those shows. But I'm saying in this series, it doesn't feel like that. It doesn't
we are reading a lot of fucked up shit behind every line.
But I'm saying, like, in this show, it doesn't feel like a touching moment or moralizing within a comedy. It feels like some scenes are just like a scene from a drama. Yeah. Like a complete hard turn.
For sure. But because of how ridiculous everything is, you can't take it serious. So.
Yeah, exactly. Like, they're not easing into those moments where you're supposed to care about the characters. They don't ease us into that. Now, on the flip side, the theme music and opening titles are so cliche and silly that they almost come full circle to being awesome.
Yeah, like, it's a banger.
It's like the SNL version of 80s. Making fun of this.
Yeah. It's like maximum 80s, like the design, the title design,
some weird animations in there.
Yeah, it's a joke version of this. It's the sketch comedy version of making fun of a late 80s sitcom. Like, it's almost like it's being self-consciously cliche for the purpose of being cliche, but it's not.
No.
Yeah.
No. There's no self-awareness.
No, there isn't, but you wish there was.
Yeah. You do.
How much of the budget do you think was spent on hairspray, for everybody involved?
30 to 35%.
Because it was her hair was big, but even the dudes had big hair because their hair was feathered to the maximum,
Yeah, he had some real Brad Taylor hair.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what I kept thinking of.
That's the one I mean, right? That's the oldest Taylor boy?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
But even Dad, he had he had long Patrick Bateman hair that was also feathered.
Yeah.
Somehow.
Well, it's funny that your first instinct is to go to Patrick Bateman.
Because
that's what I feel.
Darkness.
That's what I feel.
Yeah.
Now,
it's weird to think that this actor is not that much older than me because he feels ages older than I am.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, man.
He's the age that I am now, and I'm like, this doesn't seem right.
Did anyone get confused about all the bowling references because they're not a working class family?
I had that I had that exact thing in my notes. I literally wrote down, wait, he can't afford the country club membership? Look at that house.
Yeah.
I don't understand the bowling activity that happens. It sounds like it's a school thing. Yeah. But it happens on a Sunday. And then
it's the same,
and he's never bowled before.
Yeah.
So he's in a competition with a girl who bullies him.
Yeah.
And also I love that her family is just great O'Doyle-esque. They're laughing when she's making fun of him. Just a great little
Now, I also have in my notes about the bowling here, I wrote the kid says, "Come on, I stink at bowling." And I'm like, that kid is barely old enough and big enough to pick up a bowling ball.
Yeah, and they're playing 10-pin.
They're playing 10-pin bowling, and adults who've bowled dozens of times suck at bowling. It's hard to get good at bowling. This kid's 40 pounds soaking wet, and he's complaining that he's not a natural at it. And I'm like, the fact that he gets one strike means he's awesome at bowling, actually.
I would and at the end of it, he wins a bowling trophy, but I would like to point out that he was clearly losing for most of that tournament, so there's no way he would have recovered enough to have won.
It's nonsense.
It's total nonsense.
Full of holes, audience.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, the whole bowling thing, it kind of reminds me a bit of what we saw with Phenom, where it's an inexplicable, school-sanctioned ballroom dancing tournament. It's the same thing. It's a bowling tournament.
Yeah.
It's it just really subverted things for me. Because we were bowling is a trope for working class sitcoms. And then, these upper middle class folks.
I think they wanted to have their cake and eat it too.
I guess so.
That's exactly right.
This show and Hollywood in general I think they think working class is just somebody who has a job. So
Yeah.
So I think and he's a struggling lawyer. He's not successful. Like, he's bad at it. There's even a reference that he might not have a law degree at some
What?
point that
What?
just kind of they glaze over, and I was like, wait, what?
That doesn't work.
But like, you're right about they want to have their cake and eat it too. I've called this out in the past. They have this big house. He can apparently afford a full-time housekeeper.
A live-in
full-time housekeeper. But like, you're right. 1989, they want the show to be relatable. I'm doing air quotes here. Relatable. So they want to make sure that it seems like these people are not rich dicks. So like, just throw in some sort of bowling thing, and then people will think that they're like normal people.
How much could a banana even cost? $10?
So there's another weird plot hole moment that I feel the need to talk about. So you know when Dad comes home and he's pissed off about the tickets to the concert being counterfeit, which I guess is kind of funny, but then he has a sudden reaction to that giant piece of furniture that crashed down on the floor, literally right next to where he's standing. Like he's already having a conversation about the concert tickets, standing like 2 feet away from this like giant mess. And then suddenly he's like, whoa, what happened here?
Yeah.
What was that about?
I mean, she trashes the room, gets him arrested, and like is clearly like overextending her reach into his family. And then he justifiably fires her. And then like is just like, I'm sorry, I was wrong. And I'm like, I don't think you were, buddy. Like this girl just came into your life. And like, she was getting pretty intense in there. Like,
yeah,
I get you're attracted to her, but this is a troublesome, like, we know she means well.
Yeah.
You don't.
You don't.
Yeah.
He doesn't. He doesn't know she means well.
Yeah.
You're right. The logical reaction would be to fire her.
He just sees the next, he just sees the next person that his dark passenger has to,
Wow.
Oh man.
Wow.
Little does he know she's magic and she's completely safe. So even though the power dynamics are very weird between them, he only thinks that because she could just snap her finger. There's a lot of laser fingers and stuff like that.
Yeah, lots of laser fingers because I think that was like the easiest visual effect that they could like do.
Much like how the easiest musical stinger to transition between scenes is the sassiest and sultriest saxophone you could ever imagine.
I'm going to be really disappointed if you, at that point in our show, do not cut to a sleazy saxophone.
I've been trying to find the perfect sound effect to represent that style. And I still to this day have not found it. Wow. But you know what? I'm going to take another crack at it because no show has ever warranted it more than this one.
Yeah, I agree. All right, do we need to get into our second episode?
Yeah, let's move
it's a doozy.
So I'll describe episode 13. I chose this episode for the simple reason that it features a cameo from Dave Coulier wearing a painfully early 90s patterned vest. I'll describe what happens in this episode, and if I go into too much detail, we can always cut it out.
I was so glad that the show didn't have him say that.
It almost did. It
was always like waiting in the wings.
Exactly. So I'll keep this pretty simple. It turns out that Winnie the witch has been engaged in some sort of arranged marriage for 150 years. She doesn't love her fiancé, a warlock named Kevin. Again, this is a mythical being known as a warlock, and his name is Kevin.
I like that. Come on, that's funny. That's funny.
And her father, rather than simply canceling the arrangement, forces Kevin to go on a quest that they hope he'll never be able to complete. But he did complete the dumb quest, and now he's back. So the way she tries to get out of the marriage is to pretend to be married to Thomas, TJ, and pretends to be the mother of the 3 kids. By the way, have we put pretend marriage to get out of something in our trope library yet?
No, I don't think we
No.
have, but it's a thing.
But that's
It's a thing.
Yeah.
And anywho, in typical sitcom fashion, Thomas is not a good sport about this at all and ruins the lie. He's mad at her for putting him in this position, but then they sort of flirt with each other, so I guess he's not mad. Whatever. Oh, also, in the end, she confesses to Kevin that she doesn't love him, and that's the real reason she can't marry him. He respectfully accepts this, which makes me wonder why she didn't just tell the truth in the first place. After all, there is no reasonable leap we can make in which she would actually care about his feelings. She was totally fine with him wasting 150 years on some stupid quest that was supposed to be futile by design. Anyway, this guy is such a wet towel, I don't even have the patience to write any more description.
Well, okay. So, you say, like, why didn't you tell him in the first place? Well, it wasn't just about him. It was also about the pressure from the dad.
Yeah. And also,
But the dad helped design the quest that was supposed to be futile because
know.
he was kind of playing along so that she wouldn't have to marry him.
she was also a woman living in the last 2,000 years of,
Yeah, exactly.
of existence.
True.
She didn't know that
she
he was
could say,
okay.
yeah.
Okay, that's a good explanation. Yes,
Yeah.
that's a good explanation. There's also the goats thing, but like I don't even want to talk about that.
It's all very silly.
It's too silly.
I mean, I enjoyed like the role that her dad is played by Michael Constantine, who is like a very fun character actor. Like a lot of people remember him from the Big Fat Greek Wedding movies.
Well,
That's where I really recognize them from.
So
there you go.
He's the dad, and he's like, he's a very like kind of lovable, grumpy dad character.
Yeah, he was good.
Yeah,
He's pretty lovable in this too, despite
forcing his daughter into marriage.
Right.
exactly.
Speaking
it
of-
forces her, but then also helps her get out of it
Yeah.
pretty
Comes
quickly
around. He
a couple of
comes around.
times. Doesn't take much cajoling.
Yeah.
No, but
All right.
but speaking of cameos that aren't delightful,
Yeah.
Dave Coulier. So this is like 2 or 3 years into Full House. He's basically dressed like Uncle Joey, and it's quite frankly a pretty similar looking house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's basically just, like Joey Gladstone, but warlock.
Yeah.
I would say that I was mostly surprised that he didn't hit a lot of the same tones as Joey. So I'm not saying Dave Coulier has range, but I'm also not saying that. Like, I don't think he has good range, but I think he has different variations of
Fair.
fair. And he's mostly fine in it. Weirdly enough, I found his performance in this more kind of riffing off of like mid 80s Bill Murray than Dave Coulier.
Good point.
Like he was, he was doing some Bill Murray singing.
The pinball wizard
The
moment.
pinball wizard. Yeah. He's fine. I expected to dislike him a lot more than I did.
Performance-wise, he's fine. Like, he showed up and came to play and was clearly, like, trying to do something fun with this. But, like, seriously, I found it very difficult to look at that vest. And I'm not even saying that to be funny.
It's a bad vest.
No, it's a fair take. That's a fair take.
It's grown worthy. And there was kind of like bell sleeves or puffy sleeves.
Oh, yeah.
There was definitely a sleeve with a flourish.
I didn't know what was going on with the collar of his shirt.
It was
I couldn't
bad.
tell if that was just an 80s style or if he was trying to look old timey. And I guess that tells you a lot about 80s fashion. There's no way to tell.
I think it was new age 80s guy look.
Yeah.
Even though he's also supposed to be transported directly from olden.
But
Yeah.
I mean,
whatever
theoretically,
dimension.
the witch dimension.
The witch dimension.
But they both have been. They weren't transported. They've both been living this whole time, so they're
Right.
both very aware of the modern
confusing.
world. There's some fun.
The mythology I find very confusing. I
Well,
don't
'cause
understand.
It's non-existent.
Yeah.
It's not
It's
developed.
It's non-existent.
Yeah.
I would say there's some fun had with the quest that they send him on was, in the 1700s, a bunch of nonsense. And I enjoyed that he's able to fulfill a lot of it just by living in the modern world.
Yeah.
Like some of the things that
funny.
like he had to
The boneless
he had
chicken. He
the
just had
boneless
chicken nuggets. Yeah.
Or he had to capture a maiden's smile for eternity, and he just takes a Polaroid of her.
Yeah. He had to
or
cross
he just-
the ocean in one leap or
In
something,
one
and he
leap,
just flies Pan Am.
Yeah,
Yeah.
stupid, but clever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But speaking of stupid but clever, I noticed that one thing this show does a lot, and I'm sure it did it in the first episode too, but it was like more evident in episode 13, is a lot of humor based in wordplay, and also
Yeah.
a lot of the way they try to dance around the dad still not being aware of all of these witches and warlocks is through like mistaken, like through conversational situations where they're talking about two different things, but the
Yeah.
way they do the wordplay, it sort of sounds like they're talking in conversation. So there's the one where like it's double talk about magic, but they're talking about like the basketball player Magic Johnson. So
Yeah,
that was like, it was kind of funny, like not ha funny,
they got
but
a lot.
like
They got a lot of decent mileage out of it. Like
Yeah.
I was surprised every time they managed to go
To,
one
like, yeah.
further.
Just shoehorn it in.
yeah,
You know?
they managed to get a lot out of that style. But
Yeah.
I'm also like, was wordplay comedy in general just like really big at that time? Or like, what's.
It never goes out of style. Never goes out of style.
I mean, it's a little groany, like, because scenes like that are not like a one off.
Yeah.
They like go for minutes on just like layer upon layer of wordplay. And I'm just like, are you doing this in every episode?
Yeah.
I liked about going to see the Celtics, and he said they raised my village and roughed up my brother, and then TJ just goes, "Yeah, they're pretty rough on the road." And
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
stupid, just stupid.
you
Yeah,
know.
it's clever, but it's also like, but
clever
for what?
and stupid
Clever
at the same
and
time.
stupid, yeah. Also, like, it's, obviously we didn't watch all the episodes in between. Episode 1 and episode 13 is the last one that aired. They made an episode 14, but the show got canceled before it aired, apparently.
Really?
Yeah. So this is actually the last episode that aired to audiences, but I don't understand what's keeping her there. Like, why does she want to live with this family?
Yeah.
Yeah, that is never adequately explained. I guess in the pilot it is somewhat suggested that maybe she has feelings for him as well, or she likes taking care of Jean, but it's never.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the
It's never
problem
clear.
is there's not enough to hold on to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There's
like
not
maybe
enough to really buy the concept,
like,
Yeah, they imply it a
like maybe
little
they
bit,
should have
but-
like maybe she
Yeah.
could have been like cast out of her dimension or some bullshit like
yeah.
that. Anything
Yeah.
just to and she has to live in the real world and stuff.
Yeah.
But no,
Maybe
not
they
it.
would have gotten into it more in other episodes, but it just
Maybe. But even speaking to like the plot of episode 13, think of like this idea. Imagine that in her dimension,
yeah.
she has this arranged marriage that's going to last for all of eternity to some guy she doesn't like. So by skipping off to our dimension, she's able to dodge that. If that had been part of the underlying premise, maybe they could have gotten something out of that.
Yeah.
Like, in other words, she's hiding out here to avoid
But yeah, that
something.
didn't come up
They're
till
not
like episode
interested.
13.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, they're not interested. I get the impression that she's able to freely go between the dimensions at any time.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all dumb. You know what this episode really reminded me of? It felt like an episode of The Charmings. That's what it felt like.
It's interesting you say that because like one of the directors, one of the directors of this show I wrote it down. So Phil Squires also directed for The Charmings, and like
Okay.
I'm sure
That
there's
is-
cross-pollination between the writers as well.
So it's funny you say that, because one of the things I planned to do was read a couple of press clippings that I have set aside
All
here.
right. Why don't we do it?
And
Go for it.
one of them has a pretty relevant reference, so I should really say this right now. This is from the Wilmington Morning Star, Friday, September 22nd, 1989. So this
Sure,
is
great
this is
publication.
in the lead up to this show debuting. So I'm just going to read the start of this article here by Faye Zuckerman. The king of mediocre and unfunny comedy series, Full House, Just the 10 of Us, and Mr. Belvedere, is ABC. Remember ABC's short-lived I Married Dora and The Charmings? Two of the decade's worst sitcoms? So, pause. Obviously, my first thought there was like, oh, The Charmings. That's one that we talked about ages ago. And then I was like, ooh, I got to look up I Married Dora because... obviously, like maybe that's a show we should do. So I'm just going to describe what it's about. Los Angeles architect and single father Peter Farrell was dependent upon his housekeeper Dora Calderon. However, she was an undocumented immigrant from El Salvador, and the United States government's Immigration and Naturalization Service was about to deport her. To prevent her from being arrested upon her return home, and to be able to continue to employ her services as a housekeeper, the two married. As marriages under false pretenses were and still are violations of federal law, the first episode included a disclaimer notifying viewers of this fact and adding, "You should not try this in your own home."
Wow, that's loaded. Yeah.
We will not be covering that on that.
Yikes.
No,
that's a real season 6 episode of That Was a Show.
Yeah, so we will not be covering that. But just in that context, this article is comparing this show to that. And to The Charmings. So now I'll go on. This season of the network's rash of bad comedies, which lack either socially redeeming attributes or funny lines, has spread to Sunday night with the new comedy Free Spirit. The series is previewed tonight, blah, 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 blah. And so skipping ahead, there are also references to comparisons with Bewitched and I Dream of Jeannie, and then descriptions of what the show is about. And then it kind of concludes by saying, why does ABC keep rolling out these below-average comedies? Youngsters, it seems, approve of the shows. They enjoy watching child stars parade around in the latest junior fashions.
What?
That's the appeal
That's a leap.
That's the appeal of Full House, Just the 10 of Us, and most likely Free Spirit, which will not lift any adult's spirit. Parents beware.
I'm just gonna point out at it, and I feel like I hit on this point a lot, but like, shut the fuck up, man. Like, look, who is this guy? Like,
it's a woman.
It's a woman.
Oh, it's a woman? Like, what is your problem? Like, these shows aren't hurting nobody. Leave them alone. Like,
well,
they're not
the same
for
can be
you.
said on us right now. Like, what?
But like,
about
yeah,
us,
and I say
apart.
and I say it to us sometimes too. But I'm like,
yeah,
those shows weren't for her. Like,
yeah,
you know,
I don't even know what the point of reviewing it back then
apparently
would have been.
the kids like it, and you're like, oh, so people like it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although, in fairness to us, we watched 2 episodes of this show and talk about it in the context of having seen 2 episodes and knowing what happened after the fact. Whereas this was more predictive. This was like on
it's gonna be a stinker. Don't watch it.
I also think we're always like way more good natured about it. Like, I don't think
so,
anybody.
too.
I don't think anybody gets into these shows thinking that they're gonna put out bad stuff. Like, I don't think anybody, maybe the producer level or something like that, but nobody goes into work and is just like, haha, here's some shit for them. Like, no, everybody's trying. I mean, sometimes they're just not very good at it.
Here's a fun nugget, though, from another article. I'm not going to read the whole article, but this is written in the aftermath of this show getting canceled. And there's a reference here where it says, desperate for something to fill the time slot fast, ABC replaced it with a show called America's Funniest Home Videos. And from the all-important standpoint of the ratings, you know the rest of the story. So isn't that kind of funny, too? That, like, that's what replaced this show as something that was, like, easy to put together quickly, but then also kind of loops back to Full House because
Yep.
The Bob Saget.
The Bob Saget of it all.
Yeah.
I would point out that something like America's Funniest Home Videos was far, far worse for society than this.
Worse for society, but probably more entertaining.
I think we're living in a society completely brought up on America's Home Videos. How else do you explain TikTok?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's not people getting horribly hurt in
Sometimes it is.
accidents.
Sometimes it is.
Sometimes it is.
You're just not getting shown that because the algorithm knows that you don't like that.
Yeah. I guess that's what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mostly get cute animals and like, stuff like that.
America's Funniest Home Videos had a lot of cute animals.
Yeah.
Speaking
Speaking
of
of cute animals, I just saw a tail walk by in the video chat. Ah.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Yeah, it's all, I mean, all those things, like I said, it's like we're having a laugh at this, right?
Yeah.
And like, I have no problem ripping any of these things to shred, but like when I get like, when it's like, when people are like, they're dooming the world, and the lowest common denominator. I'm just like,
that's
it's
too
like,
much. That's
it's like,
a troll.
It's like when
take,
people,
you know?
it's like when people rant about like the Fast and the Furious movies. I could care less about them.
Yeah.
Leave the people alone who like them. Like clearly, a lot of people watch those movies. They're getting something out of it. It ain't for me. I leave them alone.
Yeah. I
It's
mean,
all about family.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like, yeah, it's like, I think we look at these shows from like a perspective of like a weird like pop culture phenomenon.
Yeah.
And like we talk about it in a nuanced way because we're not just completely trashing everything. Like we're pointing out the things that are problematic or just silly. But
our show is a time capsule. Is
yeah,
what it
there
is.
we go.
It is a time capsule. Speaking of potentially problematic,
I mean, a lot about this is.
A lot about it is also.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Like for instance,
Don't get me started.
why is the older brother so mean to his sister? And like the Alyson Hannigan character really seems to be written to be a punching bag.
Well, she's like Meg Griffin.
She's
know?
She's a proto-Meg, which
Yeah.
I guess maybe. I mean, not looking into Family Guy all that much, but I guess maybe the whole joke about Meg was probably him pulling a trope from something that it was regularly. I mean, I guess Marsha Brady got made fun of a lot.
That is like the thing though.
Yeah.
Like the sister in every family
the adolescent
always got
sister.
shit on.
Yeah.
Like they
But
always.
let's talk about Alyson Hannigan just for a second here.
Oh,
Like,
please, let's do it. She's a treasure.
Always delightful, we get to see, little adorable young brunette Alyson Hannigan before she, went red for the rest of
Her career.
her career. This character is also profoundly sad. Like they point out that there's way too much truths dropped in the first episode where they're like, she's just trying so hard to fill the mother role in this family, and I'm like, that's sad.
And she's
It is
preparing
sad.
dinner and stuff, and it's just like, oh, this is
Yeah,
this isn't
I
funny.
thought that was going to be
No.
a joke. She's like, "Don't worry, Dad, I already got dinner started." And she's like holding like a
And
casserole dish.
then
And I was like,
shit
"Haha,
had-
she's
yeah.
I thought it was funny because like, haha, like, oh, she's gonna reheat some stuff." I was like, "No, she's cooking. She cooks dinner every night." Oh
Yeah.
my God, what's
But-
going on here?
But then shithead brother immediately criticizes her cooking.
yeah.
That's right.
Like the next
That's right.
line. So it's like you can't even appreciate your sister. Like
She's a woman cooking in a sitcom. She must be stoned.
she's not a woman. She's a child. And
She
she's
is a
cooking.
child.
And
She
to
is
be
a
clear, if any of these kids are going to try to like take care of the house or whatever because the mom's gone, it should be that oldest brother
Yeah,
who's
no
such a
kidding.
dick.
Yeah.
But it seems like his character, and again, it's not the actor's fault. Like it seems
Yeah.
like, and the actor, if anything, is trying to play the character as
He's
a
trying to be like Zach Morris.
little more light and fun and not too mean.
I think the performance adds a little warmth
Yeah.
into the
Yeah.
role that might come off pretty cold on
Yeah.
paper. Like
Yeah.
you get, he's trying at least with the brother,
Yeah.
and even with he hangs out with his sister, so
Yeah.
there's that.
Mhm.
But
It's weird. It's all weird.
Yeah. There's one joke with Dave Coulier where he's talking about the quest, and after he talks about flying Pan Am, and he talks about how he ordered the kosher meal and it almost made him sick or something. And I was like, should I be offended because of anti-Semitism there, or should I be offended because of the lack of comedy?
Yeah.
I don't know if it's anti-Semitic. It's a common comic trope about basically people would order the kosher meals on airplanes and they weren't prepared. They weren't very good.
But like
because
what?
because airlines weren't really trying.
But
basically,
and I guess
But that is
but here's the thing.
Because they're not trying to make.
No, but the airlines were
Yeah,
the
yeah,
ones who were
Maybe- I
guess.
anti-Semitic.
So you're right. Maybe the implication is that it's like the fault of the airline for like not caring or for like
Yeah.
half-assing that food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe
Yeah.
that's what they were going for. But also like, but then why would he order it? And also for the record, the kosher meal on an airplane is
It's usually
actually,
It's a safe bet.
it's the
It's a
safer
safe
bet
Yeah.
because of the level of scrutiny and how it's prepared.
Mhm.
And I've known of people who are not kosher who order it because they want to get their food fast and know that it's like hot and prepared well.
I will tend to go for the kosher because it's usually moderately better. But you got to remember, this is the 80s, and airline food was for some reason fucking hilarious.
That's
like,
true.
Yeah.
People could not
That
get
was
over airline food.
That was like a popular joke
I
Yeah.
mean,
back then.
anything to do with air travel was like pretty
Yeah.
cliche
guess.
popular.
I guess was the 80s like the first real like affordable airline?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
boom?
It was when like families started to fly a lot more, like
Interesting.
quote unquote ordinary people and not like business people in suits.
Not like lawyers in their giant houses
Yeah.
with their
Yeah.
live-in witches.
Yeah. So Brynn, why don't you go ahead and connect Free Spirit with friends?
Yeah, with pleasure. It is 1 degree of separation from Friends.
Woo!
Yeah, basically, Corrine Borer was in an episode of Friends, and it's the episode called The One Where Rachel Finds Out. And it's kind of a memorable role because she plays Joey's girlfriend, Melanie, who makes fruit baskets. And she's very bubbly and really wants to have sex with Joey. But Joey is doing like medical testing or like part of an experiment because he's a broke actor and is trying to make extra money. So he can't have sex with her because he needs to like save up his swimmers, I guess, for some
I remember
experiment.
this plot.
Yeah, so he can't have sex with her, and the implication is that he's going to make an effort to pleasure her, and it's all done through innuendo, like Monica suggests this to him. Yeah, so it's another like funny
Yeah.
90s, mid-90s cunnilingus joke.
Yeah.
And then it turns out that she's like, you know, like there's like the aftermath of it, and she's just like, oh, she's like, that was so amazing. You're gonna get a big fruit basket tomorrow. And
Yeah.
so it was pretty memorable, but like basically she was a girlfriend for one episode, which was pretty standard for Joey.
Pretty standard.
Yeah. So that was like, and that's the episode. That's a big episode because that's when Rachel
Finds out about Monica and Chandler?
No. That's when Rachel finds. It's an early episode. It's like 95.
Oh.
So she finds out that Ross is in love with her right before Ross goes to China, and then subsequently comes back with Julie, and then there's that whole thing.
Right.
So yeah. Anyway.
So
yeah,
she was only in one episode, but it's a very memorable episode.
It's a fun, and she's quite, it's similar to, you know, she has a similar perky, bubbly presence. Like she's like a big presence in the episode for a few scenes.
Well, good.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious to hear about the spinoff because I'm
Yeah.
really curious to hear about her in general because I found her delightful and I was not familiar with her. So
Yeah, I mean, like she has worked steadily since, I will say. Like nothing like hugely, you know, like this was definitely like her biggest role ever, like Free
Mhm.
Spirit. And it was kind of perfect for her. Like the role, like the role of Winnie was like pretty much perfect for her because she has that presence, that like very kind of peppy, like presence. But it's so funny because she actually appeared and was in the ensemble cast of like many short-lived sitcoms and shows of the 90s. Like she was in Dream On. She was in she was in Herman's Head. She was in Double Rush, which you guys might remember we talked about with Jonathan Wolf.
We might do Double Rush one day.
We should do Double Rush for sure. She's also in a show called Partners with John Cryer and Tate Donovan, which was short-lived, which also, again, this was another like instance of me doing my research and finding more shows we should cover.
Yeah.
Partners is one of them. She's also in a show called Rude Awakening, where she had like a recurring role, which also is like a fun show, but it kind of ended 2000. So it very loosely kind of, fits into our...
No, it's fine.
It had a few seasons, so I don't know if it counts. I have to look into that further.
We're loose on that one.
Actually, Barry, you'll appreciate this. She played Leanne Mars on Veronica Mars.
She did.
Yeah.
She did,
Yeah.
which is basically the type of mom that they're talking about in this.
Yeah,
Like,
like the absentee
she's-
mom.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
she's not a good person.
Yeah. And that's so funny because she has she looks like she could be related to Kristen Bell. Like
She does, yeah.
like she
for
has
sure.
that, like the first thing I thought when I saw her character was like, oh, she's got like a pre-Nexium Alyson Mack vibe. Like like she has like very much that kind of look, that very like, petite pixie like vibe.
Yes, I might have noticed.
Yeah, and then she has done a lot of TV work, like a lot of like kind of, but in more recent years, in the like kind of 2010s and stuff, she's kind of just popped up sporadically, and she most recently guest starred on Grey's Anatomy, so she's still around, she's still doing her thing, but yeah, like nothing quite matched the role that she had in this show.
Looking forward to seeing more of her in upcoming
Yeah, me too.
Twas episodes.
Yeah. We also have Frank Luz, who played TJ.
I love how you pronounce his name.
You guys are really inviting like emotional distress by continuously referring to him as TJ.
That's TJ, I know. Yeah. Aaron, were you laughing at the way I pronounced his name?
Yeah.
Frank.
How else do you say Frank? I guess you have to say it like Frank.
That's how you say
Frank.
it. Frank.
Yeah, anyway.
You hit more of a U on the first time.
I was not like making fun of it. that's literally my instinct of how to pronounce it.
This is good. It's good radio, guys.
Yeah, real good. So he continued to work throughout the 90s, again, mainly in smaller guest starring roles. He had a recurring role in the drama series Sisters, and he also co-starred in the Johnny Depp movie Don Juan DeMarco.
Ooh, that's one of that's a notorious stinker.
Yeah. So he was in that movie, and he retired from acting officially. I got two conflicting reports on this. I think 99 is more accurate because that's like basically when his like IMDb credits drop off, and certainly he could have done theater since then, but like another source said that he retired from acting in 2019, so either way he's like out of the biz, but I think it's more accurate to say I think he retired in like 99. Okay, and then we also have Eden Ross, who played Gene. He was also in Herman's Head, which is funny. He was a busy child actor because he was in Empty Nest at the same time that he was on Free Spirit, which is funny. An Empty Nest was a much more successful show. Herman's Head, I guess he played the child version of Herman. So that'll be funny.
At some point, are we going to talk about Herman's
Yes,
Head?
I think we
we're
have
doing
to. Many
Herman's
people
Head.
have bugged us about it. Okay. He did a lot of voice work as well, like in cartoons. He did multiple characters on Ren and Stimpy, and he also voiced Flounder in the Little Mermaid
Aw.
TV show, not the movie.
Oh.
Yeah. And then also, weirdly enough, he seems to have retired from acting in 99 because like his credits drop off after that.
I just love whoever played Flounder in the movie was like too much of a big deal for the show. It was,
Yeah.
no.
And
Pass.
we also, of course, have Paul Scherer, the least likable character, but, a decent actor. So he had a recurring role on the show Sons and Daughters soon after this. So it didn't slow him down. Like he was still, I guess, an in-demand young performer. And yeah, since then, he's done lots of random guest starring roles in TV, but nothing really after 2001. And then finally, of course, we have Alyson Hannigan. So before this role in Free Spirit, she did lots of roles in random, movie of the weeks and random TV shows. I actually saw her recently in a movie of the week. It was like a very disturbing movie of the week starring the young actor from The Nanny, the teenage daughter from The Nanny. She played one of her friends, and it's like a movie about like a teenager who's where
in the hell did you see this?
Oh God. It's so Prime, the Prime Video, they have tons of bad 90s movies of the week. And sometimes I'll just really watch one of them for fun, just because it's like, that could be a spin-off podcast.
Yeah, I was gonna say, that could also be a great podcast, but I don't necessarily want to watch those.
Yeah. You won't be able to make it through them. But they're also really bad. They're really problematic.
They still are.
Yeah, it's bad. So anyway, so she was in lots of this kind of stuff. And then she got cast in this role, which was, I guess, a big break. But her biggest break, obviously, was being cast as Willow Rosenberg in Buffy the Vampire Slayer. That's I don't know if it's that or How I Met Your Mother that she's most well known for. Probably
Buffy, I would say. I guess.
So she was in basically the entire run of Buffy, right? And then she appeared as Willow a few times in Angel.
That's correct.
And then she also during that run of Buffy, she got lots of little roles here and there in movies. Like she was in the American Pie franchise as Michelle.
Of course.
The very famous, the character who famously was the band camp kid who liked to masturbate with her flute. But who Jason Biggs' character eventually marries, I believe.
You are correct.
Yeah, and then she also did a short stint on Veronica Mars.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah, and then she was cast as Lily on How I Met Your Mother, which I'm most endeared to her for, because I wasn't I don't dislike Buffy, but I never got into the fandom in the same way that some of my peers did. But yeah, How I Met Your Mother was a huge show for me. Yeah, so it ended in 2014, and she's made lots of appearances in TV and movies. Most recently, she had a voice role in a children's show called Fancy Nancy. And there's a couple other kids shows in her recent credits. So maybe she's kind of turned to children's media. She is a mom, I think, so maybe.
She is. She's married to Buffy the Vampire Slayer's Alexis Denisov.
Yes, I did see that. Yeah. And okay, so I guess the biggest takeaway from that is that Alyson Hannigan absolutely is the most successful person that came out of that main cast.
Yes.
But what I will say there were some very funny, notable guest stars listed in the IMDb credits. Obviously there was Dave Coulier, which we already touched on. But I also was kind of chuckling to myself as I read other guest stars, which were Jenny Lewis, Rilo Kiley. And it turns out she was a major child star back then.
Yeah, she was in The Wiz.
Yeah.
She was in The Wizard.
It's wild. She was very
Yeah, she was a child star.
I didn't know this about her. That's a fun trivia thing I didn't know. Yeah, and Seth Green also did an episode of Free Spirit,
which is funny because they were in that. Then they were in
Buffy together.
No, but they were also in the fucking movie Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead.
Oh my God.
They were both in that. And
I did not see that.
They were a couple in that as well.
Oh my God. I missed that somehow. Are we sure about that? I think I need to verify that.
I will make my correction right now because I fumbled over it is not, what did I say?
Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead.
No, but you'll understand. It's My Stepmother is an Alien.
Yes, My Stepmother is an Alien.
It's the other weird title movie. Alyson Hannigan and Seth Green were both in My Stepmother is an Alien, which was in 1988.
Yeah. Yeah. So I feel there's a lot of weird.
I just knew that because it's a Buffy thing. They all they all sort of knew like Seth Green and like Sarah Michelle Gellar were like childhood friends.
Yeah.
Like, and they still are like the best of friends to this
Mm-hmm.
day. So they all sort of had weird child experiences.
Okay, so I'll continue the list because there's still more people.
Please.
Okay, so yeah, and so there's also an appearance by Florence Henderson. I don't have any context and anything about the role because I frankly didn't quite care enough. Also, okay, so when I was watching the episodes for this show, I was watching episode 13 and then it auto played to the next episode, which was the unaired one apparently. And
Me too.
yeah, and the guest star is Josie Davis, who played the middle child on Charles in Charge.
Oh, she was the one that was playing the sister.
The sister.
Which was funny because it was only an episode before where they were referencing her sister who had 4 arms, and this one clearly does not have 4 arms.
Just has 2 arms,
So-
and I don't think they called back to it at all. But
I don't think they cared.
also flirting with the young, what's his name, the young boy there.
I don't know. We're at the end of an episode.
Little
I've already
shithead,
forgotten
yeah.
all the character names.
Yeah, and then also Dan Florek was also in one episode of Free Spirit immediately before he joined the Law and Order franchise as Donald Cragen. So any Law and Order heads out there know Dan Florek really well as Donald Cragen, eventually Captain Donald Cragen, and he was on both Law and Order SVU. So it's kind of funny because like that's a very different kind of show, but he like guest starred on this like right before that. So yeah, so I feel like it's funny because this show obviously had some juice. Like they were able to get people who were established at the time and then others that like weren't established but eventually became bigger. So it's interesting. Like it's got a fun trivia, lots of fun trivia to it.
Speaking of one last piece of fun trivia that I
for
must
it.
insert. I forgot to mention this when I was talking about that awful show, I Married Dora. Now, this is nothing to do with the plot of that show, but a fun fact about I Married Dora is that it's on TV Land's 100 Most Unexpected TV Moments of All Time because of the way that the series ended. And you can find this on YouTube if anyone's interested in watching it. I Married Dora, unexpected closing scene from series finale. And basically what happens is that the guy who's like, you know, the dad or whatever is about to
marries Dora.
Who marries Dora. He's about to fly off to take some job in another country and kind of like abandon her and the kids and I guess leave her to look after the kids or some stupid thing like that. But what happens is they're at the airport and he walks out to the gate and then he walks back from the gate and he makes some comment about how, everyone stop worrying. It's not happening. It's canceled. And Dora, who's there, says to him like, your flight is canceled. And he says, no, our show is canceled. And then the cameras pull back and reveal the whole set and the studio and the other cameras and everything. And the actors take a bow to the studio audience, and that's how the series ends.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Full
Good for
meta.
you.
Full meta.
That's wild. I gotta watch that.
Good
I
for
gotta
you.
watch that.
Yeah.
Good,
so
good for you. I love
Yeah.
it.
do yourself a favor and watch that on YouTube.
I
Don't
will.
watch the show. Don't watch the show.
I
Just watch
will.
that scene.
Yeah.
We should probably check in with Mr. Producer to see.
I guess so.
See if he has any notes on this show.
I'm sure he's got some tea.
That old so-and-so.
Yeah.
1989 was like his peak. So,
Yeah.
you know.
I'm sure he has lots to say about this one. Hello, Aaron. Haha, it's been a little while, hasn't it?
Hello, Mr. Producer. It has, hasn't it? You've been well?
Oh, sure. I mean, I guess as well as anyone in these turbulent times.
I guess we're all just getting by. Any new projects?
Actually, I'm glad you asked. I'm just putting the finishing touches on my new book.
Oh, no way. You wrote a book?
A book? Kid, I've written 7. This one's called Ghosts, Witches, and Cousin Oliver. Tales of exhilaration, inspiration, and eroticism by an 80s producer.
Are all your books about your experiences in Hollywood?
Most. A few of them are just Victorian-era romances, though.
Really?
Sure, kid, I mean, I got interests.
So, do you have a publisher lined up, or?
Oh, sure. I mean, actually, we're going to be doing a bit of a book tour coming this summer. Just myself, Jody, and the open road for 18 weeks.
Well, that's very exciting to hear. So anyway, this week we watched Free Spirit.
We're still doing that, huh?
Well, yeah. Why did you think I called?
I don't know, maybe just to catch up. You probably wanted to see if you could write the foreword to my book.
But I didn't even know you had a book. You just told me.
Kid, you don't gotta twist my arm. Of course he can.
Well, I mean, that's not why.
I'd be flattered. I mean, you're one of those big-timey pongcasters.
Sure, I guess I could.
That's great. I'll have Jody send you over a copy. No more than 1,200 words, and try not to be too flowery with the words.
Okay, but...
Catch you later, kid.
Oh, wow. That book's gonna be interesting.
I mean, we're gonna read it.
Perhaps we'll get some excerpts in the future.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Good luck with that forward there, Aaron.
Yeah. Well, I've never written one of those before, so that should be fun.
Did he say pongcaster?
Pongcaster.
I think he did.
Oh.
So does anyone have any leftovers?
Not this guy.
No, I guess I don't.
Okay, I got a few. I got a few little ones here. So first of all, in that flashback scene where we find out about the arranged marriage, what was she wearing? It was like a Red Riding Hood / Santa Claus outfit or something. What was that?
Did anybody else notice in that scene how bad the production value was? Because they were like stepping on the ground, but they kept moving it because it was clearly like a tarp that they'd put down and on a set. So like, oh, it was great. Every time they took a step, like the whole thing moved.
I didn't notice that detail, but the set did look cheap. And also in that scene, like, so the premise is she's basically like blackmailing her father who's cheating on her mother to get out of this marriage. We didn't talk about that before, but like just sort of glazes over the fact that he's like cheating on her mother and that she's using blackmail, whatever. One funny moment was like in that wedding scene when the wedding almost happens and one of the like kids is like, what are we going to do? And the oldest brother's like, I think if we all go in on one gift together, it'll be a lot cheaper. That was actually pretty funny.
Yeah, that was kind of a cute one.
Yeah, I like that too.
But also in the wedding scene, are they being married by a priest or minister or something? Are witches and warlocks Christian?
That's a very good question.
Like, was that just like lazy writing?
Really, yeah.
I also just want to say I regret choosing this Coulier episode. Not only
I don't. That was fun.
I had to endure looking at that vest, and the other thing is we didn't get to see a plot involving any of the kids, which might have been like more compelling or revealing about what they were like trying to do about the series as a whole. Mm-hmm. Whereas this was very much like, I don't know if you could call it a bottle episode per se, not really, but like it was very much like a very specific detour.
It's a stunt. It's a stunt episode.
Stunt episode,
sure. Yeah.
Anywho, that's all I got.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, there were a lot of boxy coats, especially worn by TJ.
Yeah.
Yeah, he looked like he had like a curtain rod in his shoulders. Constantly.
He was not a good lawyer. I mean, like, I know, like, he's like, oh, I got to take care of my kids and shit. Why'd you schedule this meeting in your home office at like 4:30 when they all get home from school? Like, what were you doing all day, man? Like, come on.
The other thing is in episode 13, we learn that he's like taking a new job and he isn't going to be working out of the house anymore. But they don't say in that episode anything about what that job is. And presumably it came up in a previous episode that I have no desire to go back and watch. But I'm just like, curious, like it leaves me wanting to know, like, well,
I would also and she
this?
Like she puts like a little arcade in the office, and that's like kind of like a weird subplot in that episode. But just like Brynn said, I also let it auto play into the next episode, in episode 14, and perhaps it was a leftover episode from earlier in the season that they hadn't aired, but in the next episode it's just an office again.
Right.
Yeah,
lazy.
There you have it. That's free spirit.
I'm already in the midst of forgetting I've seen this.
Anyway, thank you all for listening. And please follow us on Instagram at That Was a Show. We really do want to hear about the shows that you've enjoyed the most over this season, as we're coming close to the end of season 2. Tell us about what you like. Tell us about things that you want us to talk about. Just share your thoughts and feelings on these things. You can also visit our website and email us. We want to hear from you.
Thanks, guys.
And cut to credits. That Was a Show is created and hosted by Brynn Burney, Andrew Barry Helmer, and myself, Aaron Yeager. It's a production of Radio Gizmo in Toronto, Canada. Subscribe, rate, review, and share. Follow us on Instagram and tell your friends about it. That Was a Show?
Radio Gizmo.